All right. All right, let's make sure everything is working here. I think everything is working. And let me do a quick test here on the chat. Okay, cool. Everybody looks good. Everybody looks good. Okay, I fixed the restream issue. It appears that what was happening with restream is that I think I change my passwords extremely frequently. It's the security engineer in me, and it appears that it had lost connectivity even though it showed that it was connected, and it would still stream, but it didn't have connectivity to the chat. So it could have been that I may have set it up wrong previously, like years ago when I first set it up, but currently it's working now. I redid it and re-put in all the information, and it's working now, and now it's showing a check mark. So before I couldn't even see chats from other channels, now I can. So yeah, that was kind of a weird one, but it's working now, so I'll take it. We'll take it with a grain of salt and see how that goes. Farim, how you doing? How you be? Top to the AB. I'm sorry, I'm gauging my hobo level before it becomes a problem. Yeah, you know, so like this pandemic or whatever I had, I definitely went off on the rails there, but I still have what's left of my shoulders. So I was like, okay, I'll just wear exactly what I was wearing a second ago. I think that this is probably fine. Generally, I'll wear some type of sweater or onesie, sweater or one shirt or something like that with the button down or whatever. But I'll be a little less professional today because it's Monday. So I hope everybody had a good day at work. You know, I hope everybody was able to find work. If you wasn't, you know, keep your head up. Hopefully, you know, us troubleshooting some issues here and getting more technically savvy will help. So yeah, let's get into it. Oh yeah, I also try to put some lights in there, try to make it a little prettier. I've always had them, but sometimes I turn them on, sometimes I turn them off because they have a setting on them, and it's like a bunch of batteries, and they take forever to recharge, and I just didn't want to keep messing with it. But I mean, it does look aesthetically pleasing, so I'll take it and make sure I don't have any debris on my shirt in the chat thingy. I don't think people see it once I switch it up. once I switch it to this, yeah, nobody can see that. Okay, cool. I'll just making sure. Alrighty, guys, let's get started here. Hope everybody's having a good one here. Alrighty, making sure everything looks good. Yeah, everything looks good. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and start with the first one here. So this time here we have some cool things going on. So I've been able to find other subreddits. So the more I play with Reddit, the better I get at it. So we've been able to find some other channels like NVIDIA, AMD, Apple, which is a popular one. So we found a few channels with Apple, and obviously I have experience with Apple as well. I'm actually looking at a MacBook Pro right below the camera, even though I'm not an expert at Apple products as I was a late bloomer. I've been Windows my entire life, so I didn't actually switch to Apple until I was my jobs kept giving me MacBooks because they were a better quality than the other Lenovo option that they had, and it was less bulky. So, and on top of that, I wanted to get better at Linux, and I wanted to get better with Apple. And the job that I had, it was more Linux based than Windows based. So I went ahead with the MacBook Pro, and that was like 6 years ago. And ever since then, I've kind of I'm pretty good with it. I'm good with all the because I have like MacBook Pros, I have iPads, iPhones, watches, stuff like that. Mostly just for the channel, but I do like the product. I do know quite a bit about the product, and I'm trying to get better at it. So this is probably the very best way to get better at it. So let's get started. So that'll be further down the line, though. But we'll get to it. Judging by the speed that I'm normally at, we should pretty much get to it pretty quickly. Alrighty. So this is going to be posted by Altruistic Minute 802, and they write, "Slow internet after uninstalling VPN." That's interesting. Generally, when it comes to VPN, it usually slows down the internet. Hello, yesterday I uninstalled a VPN ZenMate, and now my internet is very slow. My ping in a video game doesn't get impacted, but to load an internet page, it takes like 15 seconds, but before it was 2 seconds. Okay, well, okay, so with this one here, he doesn't actually mention where he's at. Typically, what may be happening here is if his VPN... Okay, let's back it up here. So so whenever he connects to a VPN, I'm guessing depending on how the VPN is set up, they were probably tunneling all of his traffic. In other words, they were basically tunneling it through their server and then out of their network. So because of that, it may be a situation where the VPN that he was tunneling to may be a closer location than the servers he's been trying to reach, and maybe he's someplace that is a bit further, and therefore it takes him a little bit longer to upload the page. But 15 seconds is extremely long. You know, it may be a difference between 2 seconds and like 4 seconds, but for it to actually 15 seconds, but before it was 2 seconds. Okay, so there's a lot to this. So he doesn't mention exactly what pages he's been trying. So like, let's say if he's trying Google, well, Google is all over the place. So there's plenty of servers that are closer to where he's located. So I wonder what websites he's trying to visit that is giving him that level of latency. So how people would mostly troubleshoot this is, well, let me see if he'll let you. What I'm thinking about is doing a packet tracer. Is it packet tracer? Yes, it's a packet tracer. I was thinking between packet tracer and traceroute. Try to do a packet tracer in this particular situation, and basically see every hop that you're hitting, and kind of go from there. And I'm guessing that whenever you connect to the VPN, you hit less hops, but it's a possibility that when you connect to the VPN, it won't allow you to do that anyway, because it may be hitting a firewall, and the firewall may block it, but it'll just be blank on that particular hop, but the next hop it may show up if it's a router. So yeah, if you're getting that type of latency, okay, so let's flip it. Because there's so many ways to draw this. You can say, okay, well, what website did you try to reach? And then try to look at it from that perspective. Or you can say, okay, well, how close is the VPN to the site that you were trying to reach? You know, you can look at it that way. Or you can look at it this way. So, but to load an internet page, it takes 15 seconds, but before it was 2 seconds. Uninstall VPN, mate. And my internet is very slow. Okay. So you can also take it the DNS route. It's possible that his DNS was also going through ZenMaid, and now that it's not, his DNS may be slower. So if your issue may be that you are using a different DNS host than you were previously whenever you were tunneling through VPN, or maybe let me think about that. Yeah, it's a possibility that it could be DNS. The only way you can really know is by doing a packet capture or doing a trace, and seeing exactly what may be happening with the hops there. Or it may be that I don't know, because I mean, you can't even say, okay, well, what about wireless or being wired or something like that? Well, if it was working on VPN and then as soon as he removes it, he has the problem, then you can't really even say wireless versus wired in this particular situation. This is going to be like, you know, something on their side or something on his side, or something with where he's going. That's the only three that you can pretty much look at, but there's just not enough information to troubleshoot this. If we look at it from the state of, okay, well, maybe the VPN that he tried to reach at, the server that they gave him that he was trying to hit for his next hop, was closer to the websites that he's been trying to go to than when he was without the VPN. Or you can look at it from his perspective, and maybe his DNS is having issues, you know, or you can look at it from the perspective of the site itself. Where's it at? You know, have you tried Google? Well, depending on what sites you tried, it may have changed it. So it's just so many different ways to troubleshoot this guy, and we need more information to go further. So that's how I would say on that one. I'm sorry, Altruistic. We would need a little bit more information to give you a more definitive answer. You would have to try a few things in order for me to actually say one way or another exactly what's happening. But I would definitely try the packet tracer. Is it packet tracer? Yeah, it's like a trace, and it'll basically show you each hop that you hit. I can't think of it off the top of my head. It may literally be Packet Tracer. I'll probably look it up and then beat myself up about it that I would forget something so simple. But yeah, that's what I would try, just to see how many hops you're hitting. We've had situations like this before where we had, you know, people or customers having situations, and when I say we, I mean this issue is common. Like in video games, there are there are certain servers that are relatively far away, and depending on where you're at, it may be a better connection by hooking up to a VPN that's closer to that area. For example, if the servers are in Korea and you're in America, if you hook up to a VPN that's in Korea, you may actually have a better signal because you're taking a different path. Does that make sense? So you're taking a different path in order to get to that location versus going through the path that you normally would go to, which will go through your internet service provider and may hit a router that's actually slower. Ideally, it shouldn't be, but it's a possibility that the path that you normally take in order to get to that location is slower than the VPN's path to get to that location. So you would use the VPN in order to get to that location. So that may be a kind of a situation where he's having, where whenever he's trying to connect in order to get to that particular path, it's actually slower than whenever he's on the VPN and is going through a different path. So he may have a router or a hop within his network going to that path that may be slower than whenever he's going through the VPN. So it may be one of those kind of situations. I probably should have just said that. I'm sorry. I probably should have just started with exactly what I just said there. Alrighty, altruistic. That was a good one. That was a good warm up. We're getting there. Heat. Okay. Kitty. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Cthulhu. As soon as I say kid, I think kitty. Cthulhu 991 says, help with room heat. Oh boy, do I know about room heat. Okay, so there was a situation where I used to have miners running in like a condo, and I back then I had probably like 40 cards, and you don't think that cards generate enough heat until you realize exactly what they're doing. Not only do they generate heat, so there's ambient heat around them, they also mix with the cool air in the place and turn the entire area hot. So they immediately mix with the cold air. So if there's cold air, it's gone. And you immediately turn into a sauna. It is awful. It is awful, awful, awful. But yeah, let's go ahead and go to this next question here. Help with room heat. Basically, I have my setup in a small room with only window open, and at certain times of the day, the heat makes me sweat. And I can really use my PC without being uncomfortable. Are there any suggestions or advice you guys have that could help out with this? Thanks. If not, thanks for reading this. I respect that. That's a good guy. Hopefully, I can help, man. So, okay. So his PC is having some issues because he's in an enclosed area, and even with the window, it's not enough. So I'm guessing outside where he lives is also hot. So like we were talking about before with miners, how it will mix the hot air with cold air and immediately turn everything hot. The same thing can happen here. If it's hot outside, like the ambient outside is hot, then it will mix with the hot air in this room and turn this entire area hot. So in this kind of a situation where he's trying to stay relatively cool, and there's not much of a delta between outside and inside, he can try to lower some of the settings. In other words, undervolt his computer in order to see if that will help. So he can try to undervolt the CPU, he can try to undervolt the graphics card and see if that will help, and kind of slow it down. Or maybe if it's overclocked, not overclock it. You can try that and see if that is helpful. Or big brain time, he could try to move his computer so that the exhaust of the laptop, or I'm sorry, the exhaust of the desktop is facing outside. That would be the best way to handle it. So now it's exhausting directly outside as opposed to exhausting in his room where it actually generates too much heat. So I would try that. I would try to take your desk and move it towards the window so that the desktop's exhaust is going out the window instead of mixing with the air inside the home. So now whenever you start it, just open your window and now it'll exhaust outside instead of in your room. And that should help with the situation, and that should actually keep you cooler. Yeah, that should work. I just thought about that. Yeah, that should pretty much work. So here's the thing. So if you think about like heat and heat dissipating, generally heat wants to rise to the top. So you're gonna have to kind of keep it like really close to the window so that it can exhaust out the window. or you can create some type of a funnel. What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to give him options that are free. So you could say portable AC, you could say laptop, you could say iPad. All of those are good options, but if he's opening a window, then chances are he doesn't really want to spend a whole bunch of money. The man just wants to use his computer. So what I would personally do is I would try to exhaust it out the window. And in order to do that, you can do it a couple different ways. One, just put it towards the window as close as you possibly can. And two, try to create a funnel of the exhaust, like with trash bags or something like that, or paper, and try to create an exhaust out the window. Think of it like a portable AC hooked up outside the window so that it can exhaust right out the window. So instead of you doing that with a portable AC, you're actually doing that with your computer. So the back of it at least, and have it exhaust out the back of, or exhaust out the window, and kind of funnel it there. Now, of course, the fan isn't fast enough or spinning at a high enough RPM to just push it through something that's far. So you still have to be relatively close, but it is an excellent option to try to get the heat out your house instead of it actually burning up and mixing with the cool air in your room. So I would try that. Alrighty, Cthulhu, hopefully that helps. Let's go to the next one. Okay, cool. This is super long. All right, so this is from AMD Questions, and basically this guy is called Internet Survivor. Nice name. You don't even have any numbers on it, man. He must be doing this for a minute. Alrighty, summary of issue. PC resets during gaming, seemingly at random. Hi everyone, I'm having a weird pickle. Basically, my computer keeps resetting whenever I'm gaming, and each time the computer resets, the sound drivers get wonky. Okay, only the board sound driver is recognized. Okay, I tested for overheating, nothing. Stress tested with AMD driver 2, nothing. I thought it was an electrical peaking, but the problem happens in random intervals. I might be playing for 5 minutes or an entire afternoon instead of just happening whenever the GPU needs more power. I installed the latest AMD drivers after using the scrubbing tool given by AMD to remove every trace of previous installations. Nothing. At most, the system accused the driver h.bus.inf of being faulty, but after rebooting the PC, it was okay. Alrighty, and let's scroll down a little bit here and let's look at his specs and see what he's rocking with. He has Windows 11 Pro, 21H2, and then he has a Ryzen 5 5600G with Radeon graphics, and then he has a He has a processor, or 24 gigs of RAM, and a motherboard. Let me see, where's his graphics card? Right, Radeon graphics, 3.9 gigahertz. What? AMD Ryzen 21H2. Okay, yeah, he said Radeon graphics at 3.9 gigahertz, but he doesn't actually say what graphics card he has, which is okay. AMD Radeon 6750 XT. There it is. Okay, did I just? Oh, I thought I just highlighted it from the OBS. Okay, whatever. So. That's okay. So he has a 6750 XT, and he has issues with the sound, and computer keeps resetting whenever I'm gaming. Okay, I apologize. The sound is just a secondary issue. His primary issue is that his PC keeps resetting whenever he's gaming. So, but it's on random intervals. Okay, so his PC keeps resetting on random intervals, but as a byproduct, the sound typically starts to mess up whenever it comes back. Okay, well, he said it had no rhyme or reason. So it had no rhyme or reason to it, it just happens randomly. He's already tried reinstalling the driver, so let's call it not a driver. I've had issues with AMD just in my history with AMD products. But for this one here, if it's crashing, what I would do personally is I would visit Event Viewer and see why it's crashing. So basically you would just, in your bottom left hand corner of Windows, do a search and then go to Event Viewer, and then from Event Viewer go to Hardware, and then once the Hardware tab pulls up, scroll to the timestamp of when it rebooted and see what errors you got there, and then take it from there. it's possible that you could have a faulty graphics card, and by faulty, I don't mean that the graphics card entirely is faulty. I think that you may have bad, maybe the memory, certain certain, I'll just call it partitions because I can't even think of the word in my head right now. It was, it's like, oh, I can't even remember. It's not even a channel. It's just there's certain sectors. Let's call it sectors. That's probably better. Certain sectors in memory that may be corrupted or faulty. And whenever you are running a game after some time or whenever it hits that particular faulty part of the memory DIMM module, it in the graphics card, it starts to have an issue. So, and that could be random. So it now, of course, if the game is utilizing, let's say, 2 gigs, you may not even experience an issue depending on which one it hits. Oh, this is the issue. Okay, so the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. So let's say he has a bad sector on a particular DIMM module. So it's 12 gigs. So let's say it's 4 gigs or one 12 gig stick. It could be one 12 gig stick. That's fine too. But 4 makes more sense. So let's say it's like 4 gig sticks, and one of the sticks has a bad sector on the DIMM module. Okay. So let's say he's playing any game. Well, most games don't utilize full 12 gigs of a video memory. So they only utilize like 1 gig, maybe 2 gigs, something like that. And so it depends on what partitions, we'll just call it partitions, of memory it's utilizing. If it's utilizing the one that's actually having a faulty, that's faulty, then it's gonna crash. But if it doesn't, and you're just playing the game, you may not have this particular issue. But the amount of memory a game uses ebbs and flows. It just really kind of depends. So eventually you'll probably hit it. So I think that you actually have an issue with your graphics card, unfortunately. I think that this one here seems like it's memory. It can't be, well, it can be, but it's highly unlikely that it's drivers because of what you've already done previously. But video memory makes excellent sense in this particular situation because it makes every piece fits. And with what you're saying is happening and how it happens at random intervals, I just think that you have a bad sector of RAM for the GPU. So what I would do to troubleshoot this and to figure out whether or not I'm right or not is to do a stress test on your GPU. That will let you know. And so just do a GPU stress test, let it run for like, I don't know, 60 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, and see if it crashes your PC. That's what I would do. And if it does, I'm sorry, bro. It's just one of those kind of situations where you may have to look into getting a new graphics card if that is the case. You can't really swap out the DIMM modules because they're usually soldered to the board on graphics cards. Alrighty, that's a good one. That's a very good one. So I hope that one helps. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. Alrighty, so now we're on the phone side. That's fine. I rock with phones. Help! My Galaxy Tab A6 gets way too hot. This is from Hamator. Okay, Hamatar. I like that better. And Hamatar says, so I just touched my tablet and it was extremely hot to the point of being able to burn me. Oh dear Lord. I was on standby and wasn't charging. The battery percentage also dropped significantly since the last time I checked 1.5 hours ago. Yeah, I had this problem. Any help on what might cause this and if I need to buy a new tablet? I'm currently on vacation and tomorrow I'll fly home. Is it safe to take it with me on the plane? Take off the case. Next question. That's the first thing. That's immediately what I thought of as soon as you told me that. Because I've had this situation before with iPhones. Ironically, I have the case that is also a wallet, and what may be happening is sometimes I would sleep on my phone because I sleep awkwardly. And I may roll over on my phone or something like that, and it heated up so much it killed the battery. And I was on, and it was like at full charge, and it'll die in like a couple hours. But as long as you leave it cooled and let it get some cool air, it won't actually die. But once it starts to heat up like that, it'll just kill the battery life because now the CPU is working overtime to do the exact same processes that it could have done at a cooler rate or a cooler temperature. So now the device is trying to work overtime while being overheated. So yeah, you may not need a new tablet. However, in this particular situation, what I would recommend is to remove it from its case. I'm guessing the case here may be actually adding some unnecessary heat that is causing the device to overheat. And if it's safe to take on a plane, I don't even want to be in the middle of that. But what I would personally do is, if you feel uncomfortable about it, power it off, and then just sit on the plane and listen to, horrible movies or whatever that they currently have available, and just not use your tablet. Just leave it turned off, and that way, it can't overheat if it's not on. So I would handle it that particular way, and that's what I would do for this particular situation. It seems like it probably isn't a case. If it's not in the case and it's still overheating, then you got bigger issues, my friend. You may have multiple apps that are running that you may have to close, or it may be a driver. It's a possibility. You can try to update, but that's very, very low on the totem pole here. I would go case, and then I would go applications that can make the device overheat because it has multiple applications, or it has so much loaded into memory that is overheating the CPU, or just CPU entirely, and then go hardware. All of those are better options than driver in this particular situation. Alrighty. Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the chat just to make sure nobody had questions. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next one here. Oh man, I feel real bad trying to read this dude's name. Okay, this is from Please Hit Me. I will not. This is a very, what do you say? What Sheldon say? We live in a very litigious organization. I'm gonna need verbal consent. That's exactly how I feel about that name. I'm sorry. We live in a very litigious community. I'm gonna need verbal consent. Booting and rebooting my PC sometimes gets stuck immediately with a black screen and a non-flashing underscore. I didn't understand a single thing that I just read, so I'm just going to reboot. I'm just going to re-say that. Booting and rebooting is not the no. Booting. I was about to go straight Captain Planet. Booting and rebooting my PC sometimes gets stuck immediately with a black screen and a non-flashing underscore. Non-flashing. Ooh, that's interesting. If it was flashing, then that's during the process of it booting and it trying to find the drive. But it's not flashing. That's interesting. Oh, this is going to be good. I recently made an upgrade. I'm swapping my motherboard and CPU out. I went from a Z170 Pro gaming 6700K to a B550A Pro with a Ryzen 5600X. So he went from Intel to AMD. Cool. I didn't do a fresh install of Windows 10. Most people don't, not anymore. Back in Windows 7 people did, but nowadays it'll just, download the drivers. If that might be an issue, it is relatively fresh though, just 2 to 3 months old. All I did was swap the motherboard out and plug everything back into as is, and install things like the chipset drivers. Installed it. Okay, it's only sometimes. Okay. So I was like, how do you install it if it wasn't working? But it only happens every now and then. It seems to be a 50-50 on whether it happens or not. I probably should have just kept reading. It seems to be a 50-50 on whether it happens or not. And if it happens, I have to flip the PSU switch and wait like 10 or so seconds and then turn it back on. And almost always does it work fine then. Get stuck. Okay, my operating system is on a 950 Pro 512 gigabyte NVMe going directly into the motherboard. No cables or converters or USB things. When it happens, it's genuinely there we go. When it happens, it's genuinely straight up frozen, and I've waited 10 minutes and nothing happens. I also had the BIOS menu freeze on me a couple of times until I removed half of my RAM. I have 4 16 gigs of 3200 megahertz DDR4 sticks in. Inputs would no longer work and the clock would stop going, so it was a full freeze. Seems fine now. I have not upgraded my BIOS yet. Could this be why, even though it doesn't even make it to BIOS when this happens or shows the logo? What are some troubleshooting steps or likely issues going on here? Is there any more info I can give that might help narrow it down? You were very detailed. We appreciate that. That's BIOS and memory. BIOS or memory? So he said he swapped it out. Well, okay. He said he swapped it out, and which means that he said he only swapped out the CPU and motherboard, but he said he was able to fix the issue when he had less RAM. So it may be that his 3200 megahertz sticks, the motherboard that he swapped it out with, may not be able to handle it, but that's very rare. Or the XMP profile that it picked up is having issues, and that would make it freeze. But it's freeze. If it's freezing before it starts blinking and it freezes and it turns that blink solid, then that means that it couldn't even read from the drive. So if it's blinking and then it reboots, or it's blinking and then it tells you something, that means that it's trying to read from the drive and it's unable to actually find the boot partition for Windows. If it's freezing there, that means his issue is RAM or BIOS or motherboard or CPU. It's physical. RAM, BIOS or BIOS. So physical or firmware. So with this particular situation, I would say firmware first. So I would upgrade the BIOS to the most up-to-date version. First thing I'll do. Second thing I do is I remove all the dim sticks except for one, and then see if you have your issue. Your issue is 50-50. If it's 50-50, then it can happen at any time. So I would personally just use one dim stick for a week and see if it happens again, or a couple days and see if it happens again. Surely you're not gonna get tails 8 freaking times. Ideally, you're gonna get heads once. So if that's the case, then if you like only have one DIMM slot in there or one memory stick in there and everything is working fine, then it could be an issue with the motherboard, and the motherboard is having problems with the DIMM sticks that you're using. Not necessarily that the DIMM sticks are bad because you only just migrated it from the Intel rig, but it could be that the motherboard just doesn't like the type of memory that you're using, or having issues with the type of memory that you're using. Therefore, updating the BIOS may fix it, or it may just be a motherboard issue and you may want to replace it. So with this one here, I would say motherboard first, okay? And the only reason why I'm saying RAM is because it's not really RAM per se, but the way the motherboard handles the RAM. So motherboard first, RAM in respect to motherboard. So in other words, trying one DIMM stick instead of 4, and as well as BIOS update. So all 3 issues are talking about motherboard in this particular situation. I don't think it's going to be the NVMe, because if it was, you would have had the issues when you were on the Windows platform. So you can try to reinstall Windows, but because it's freezing at the boot of the hard drive, at the recognition of a hard drive, it doesn't sound like it may be a bad NVMe. But even if it was, swap it. You know, I'm guessing you still have the parts. Swap it back. If you swap it back and it doesn't have the issue at all, you know, after a few days, then it can't be the NVMe drive. So the NVMe drive can be removed as an option very, very easily. The other two, the CPU and motherboard, it just really sounds like a motherboard. Even a CPU wouldn't really freeze you there. If a CPU wanted to kill you, it'd kill you. It's not gonna. CPU doesn't discriminate. It doesn't be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna freeze. I'm just gonna, you know, stop you at boot while you're looking at the drive. If a CPU has a problem with you, you're gone. There's no in between here, and especially not during boot of recognizing a drive. That rarely happens. So here I would say motherboard. All 3 options, motherboard. So that's what I will look at in this particular situation. Alrighty, that's a good one. That was a really, really good one. Man, these issues, like over the course of, I don't know what episode I'm on, like 7 or 8 or whatever, but over the course of this, man, these issues have gotten on point, man. It keeps you thinking. I like this a whole lot. Alrighty. Checking the time here, checking the sweat, making sure everything is good, making sure my lights are still in the background. They are so pretty. Alrighty, this is from Distinct Detail. Distinct writes, HP 22YH monitors HDMI stopped working. All it says is input signal not found, and check the video cable and video source. Right. That's a typical setting that it will tell you whenever it has issue trying to find the HDMI input. I think it senses when I plug and unplug the HDMI cable, because the screen goes blank, then shows the message. I've used my PC, laptop, and PS4 on it, mini HDMI cord, so I think it's a monitor issue. I do have an idea of what the problem could be. Linked to the HDMI port. It appears to be somewhat disconnected. I'm not sure if that should be like that, but I doubt it should be. Okay, alright, let's click on it. Let's see how this goes. Can y'all see that? Yes, y'all can. That is interesting. Yeah, that does not look normal. It looks a little off for the HDMI port there, but really it should just be this right here, this connector. It should just be that, but it could be that this right here is pushing on it, which is making the connection push back. So kind of like it'd be the equivalent of bending your HDMI cable. So it's a possibility that that could be the problem. But because you've tried multiple cables, and let me turn this off here and go back. I don't know what page I was on. Okay, cool. Because you've tried multiple cables and multiple devices, it can only really point to the HDMI, unfortunately. And because he has a screenshot with HDMI and VGA, he doesn't have a whole lot of options. So what I would tell him in this particular situation is if he's having this particular issue with his monitor, he may have to go to VGA temporarily, because his monitor more than likely is relatively old because of the inputs that he has. It looks like he may only have HDMI and VGA. So in this situation, it may be a better option to go ahead and go down to 720p and then use the VGA input. So basically do VGA to HDMI or something like that, and get a connector, and then just use the VGA, because the HDMI looks like it may be having a problem. That input may look like it may be on its way out, unfortunately. So if you want to keep the monitor, then I would just swap to VGA and just use that temporarily until you can afford to get a new one. Or it's a possibility that it's under warranty, or maybe it's owned by his job and maybe he can swap it out. But yeah, that's what I would say on this one here. He's already tried multiple HDMI cables, and he's already tried multiple devices. So now of course it is normal for you to suggest saying, hey, swap it out with a different HDMI cable or a brand new HDMI cable. I'll recognize that. But outside of that, I would say, it may be an issue with his monitor, and he may want to try hooking up with VGA if everything keeps pointing to monitor. Alrighty, Mr. Detail, hope that helps. And can I actually do that? No, I can't. I thought I was like, man, can I actually click on something in OBS and it actually change on here? And no. Though that was cute. Alrighty, so this is from Solveneer06, and Solveneer writes, easy anti-cheat blue screen. Okay, wow, I can't even talk today. Easy anti-cheat blue screen of death problem. I play a game called Lost Ark. Me too, bro. I play Pally. That uses easy anti-cheat, and for that last 7 days, it's been crashing my laptop consistently. BSOD, it says driver unloaded without canceling pending operations. Okay, app easy anti-cheat.sys. I am pretty sure my drivers are up to date and my laptop can handle the game pretty well, since I have been playing it without much issue since February. My specs, February is when, is that? Yeah, February is when the game came out. My specs are the i7-9750H, NVIDIA GTX 1660 Ti, it's NVIDIA GTX 1660 Ti. This is a laptop though. And then 16 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM. Let me know if you need any other specs. Thanks in advance. Okay, so the anti-cheat software. All right, so here's what happened with Lost Ark, right? So Lost Ark, when it first came out, they had a horrible issue with botters. And it was so bad that you could just sit in one of the towns and you could just see them running in droves, running in the exact same pattern over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. It was so bad that it made the price of gold skyrocket, because it was easier to obtain, and so it wasn't worth as much as it currently is. So Lost Ark and Amazon have been working tirelessly to try to figure this out. Now, in the Korea servers, they don't have this situation, but in the American servers, it was super prevalent, and it was going on for like maybe 3-4 months until they came out with this, which is the Easy Anti-Cheat Sys update, essentially, which makes it so that it changes how the game operates. Like it will constantly ping you if you're doing something consistent. Like if it's watching the way that you move and you go to different locations, and it will ping you and make you do tests and stuff like that to make sure that you're awake and stuff like that. But it only triggers, like what I've noticed, it only triggers when somebody is doing something consistent, like if they're going a consistent path every single time and they're not deviating, because it's never pinged me or made me verify that I was online. But they made a lot of progress with this, and because of that, it made it so that there aren't as many botters in the game as there was previously, and the price of gold has calmed down. So he's having issues with that anti-cheat system, and it's causing a blue screen of death on his screen. So he may have not had an issue until they made that recent update. If that's the case with his particular situation, I would try, me personally, is to uninstall Lost Ark and reinstall it, as well as I would try to turn off any antivirus or Windows Defender when running the program. Now, I have Windows Defender on whenever I run Lost Ark, and I don't have a problem. However, if he's running to that situation, I would at least try it. So uninstall and then turning off Windows Firewall, Windows Defender whenever he's running Lost Ark, and then reinstall the game. And then see if that helps as well. Now, okay, so it says he's crashing his laptop consistently. And I wonder how long it takes for the last 7 days. Okay, so it's only been going on for a very, very short time. It's actually the anti-cheat has actually been out longer than 7 days. So there may be a recent update to it. That part I'm not sure about. But if he's just now had the issue, so I would uninstall, reinstall, and turn off Windows Firewall and Defender and see if that helps. I would also try to upgrade the graphics driver on his laptop and see if there's any updates for his device, whether it be graphics or possibly CPU, but mostly just graphics. And this seems more like a firewall antivirus not liking the program Easy Anti-Cheat. And because of that, it's having some issues and it's trying to stop the program. That's what it looks like. It may be one of those situations where he may need to whitelist that if his firewall is being overly aggressive on Lost Ark. So that's what I would recommend in this situation, because that's really all it sounds like. It sounds like antivirus, firewall, Windows Defender, something along those lines is very aggressive towards Lost Ark, and whenever it tries to run that particular Easy Anti-Cheat, it thinks that it is running a cheat system or something that needs to be blocked. You have this issue a lot with what's it called? It's called oh my god, Keylogger. Keylogger is a type of there's this program that allows you to essentially it mimics the keystrokes that you put in. So like if you wanted to macro keystrokes, you can use this program. But antiviruses and firewalls had a particular situation where they had problems with this program. And it had read it as something malicious, even though it wasn't. It was a free-to-use open-source program, but because of what it was doing, it was changing keyboards to macros, and it was basically making it so that your keyboard, you press one button on your key, and it would remap it to something else, like Alt-Shift-E or something like that, in order to use a skill or something like that. It saw it as an antivirus. It may be looking at the Easy Anti-Cheat and thinking the exact same thing, because exactly like we were saying, what Easy Anti-Cheat is doing in Lost Ark nowadays, because of what it's doing, it's checking to see whether or not you're making consistent strides or you're making consistent movements over and over and over and over and over again. And in order for it to do that, it has to look at the way that you're moving over and over and over and over again. And because of that, it could be triggering his antivirus, his firewall, his Windows Defender, in which case he may need to disable it. So that's what I would recommend on this one here. That really only sounds like that's typically what it sounds like. It doesn't really sound like it's anything else in this particular situation. So I would go firewall, Defender, antivirus. Alrighty, hope that helps. Easy Anti-Cheat. I hate to see a fellow Lost Ark player having issues, so hopefully that does it. But yeah, that Easy Anti-Cheat, like understanding the history makes it kind of all make sense on why he may be having issues, because if it says unloaded without canceling pending operations, meaning that it got blocked. Because if you take it away while it's trying to process things, that's exactly what it will say. That's exactly what any process will say. So I'm guessing that's probably what ended up happening. I think his Easy Anti-Cheat got blacklisted. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. Man, this has been crazy good. Crazy good, man. I'm really liking this. This has been great. Can I go with one more? No, I cannot. Okay. So this one here is from, let me make sure what we got on the clock. Okay, we got a little bit of time. This one here is from Trying to Be Funny. Trying to Be Funny writes, Ethernet connection not working on any devices. Hi all, for context, oh my god, I'm sorry. As soon as he said context, I was thinking of multi-context. Hi all, because it said networking, then it said for context, and then my head just started thinking about multi-context. Okay, hi all, for context, my room is upstairs and my internet box is downstairs in the hallway. Just setting up my PC Windows 10 after moving back from United States, and my PC or PS5 won't connect to the internet via Ethernet. Okay, just setting up my okay. My room is upstairs and my internet box is downstairs in the hallway. Just setting up my PC after moving back, and my PC or PS5 won't connect to the internet via Ethernet. Okay, something which I have done since I purchased my PC in 2017, as it does not have a Wi-Fi card and only Ethernet connection is possible. This was never an issue at uni, and I was even using Ethernet connection on my PS5 in the living room downstairs just 2 weeks ago or so, just 2 weeks or so ago, as my room was being refurbished. Wi-Fi is working totally fine, and we have decent good Sky Internet, UK internet provider. Okay, I already have an idea what's going on. Internet provider, but we'll continue on. I have tried the basic stuff, switching Ethernet cables, turning my PC, computer, or internet on and off, switch sockets they are plugged into. Switch sockets? How you do that? So I'm guessing he has multiple Ethernet outlets in his house and he tried a different outlet. I've tried the basic stuff, switching Ethernet cables, turning my computer or internet on and off, switch sockets they are plugged into. All that kind of stuff when restarting the Wi-Fi. I managed to obtain a brief connection allowing me to scroll Twitter, but after a few minutes I would lose it. See, that's interesting. So he had a connection and then he lost it. That means that the issue is more than likely not DHCP. Because even DHCP, if he had a connection and then he lost it, then his issue is more so signal than DHCP, right? Because if DHCP was the issue, he would have never gotten a lease. It would still be 169 and all the way. And 169 means that it's a local IP address. In other words, it's an IP address that computers give themselves so they can talk with other computers, because it can't actually find an IP address that gets it on the internet. I have even bought a new Ethernet plug kit. Okay, power line, but that's nasty. I even bought. I'm saying a brief connection. Okay, I even bought a new Ethernet plug kit, a TP-Link AV power line, Wi-Fi 3-pack, but alas, it has not worked. He bought a power line adapter and it didn't work? I'm honestly begging for any solution as to what to do. I'm utterly, totally stumped. I managed to run a troubleshoot for internet connection, and despite not working previously, I did manage to conjure up information that the DNS server was not responding. What? The DNS server was not responding. Okay, fair. Any help is greatly appreciated. If you manage to find a solution to this problem, I will consider naming my firstborn after you. Oh, it's on. Your firstborn is totally going to be named Anthony. Thank you for everybody. As I'm writing this, Windows recommend I reset my network connections, and it is now working. However, wireless connections tend to be around 68 megabits per second download, and my current wire connection is 29.2. I was thinking latency all day long. And twice on Saturday. I was thinking that you had latency issues, right? Because it couldn't have been a DHCP because you didn't have a lease. Or you didn't have a leasing issue, right? Because if it was just DHCP, then as soon as you got that IP address, then everything would have been fine until that lease was expired, which is 3,600 hours or something like that. So it can't be DHCP in this particular situation. The only thing that I can think of is latency. However, if it was latency, the power line would have fixed it. So it's like, okay, well, if it was latency, the power line should have fixed it, but it didn't. So if the power line doesn't fix his issue, and on top of that, it seems more latency than anything, and he's tried different plugs and everything like that, it actually points to his computer, which he makes it sound like he's absolutely right. Because as soon as he tried and he basically went to his recommended settings and he made Windows fix the issue. It actually started working, but his internet speed is slowed. It looks like his his networking card is dying. That's what it sounds like in this particular situation, that he may have issues with his wired card having a problem, or his DNS, it was hardwired previously. So in other words, he was away, okay, and when he was away, where he may have had DNS IP addresses in his network connection settings, but DHCP set up for the IP address. In other words, it will acquire the IP address, but for the DNS information, it was using a set DNS, and maybe a set DNS that's very common in the UK. But whenever he moved back to the States or moved back where he was, those DNS are no longer reachable, or he can't reach them from his particular location because he's not there anymore. So it may be that now, I'm sorry, I just saw that come up. It may be that now, oh my goodness, everything is just starting to beep. Okay, so it may be that now what may be happening is that his internet connectivity, it may be working, he's getting the DHCP, but because he's not hitting the right DNS IP addresses, it wasn't working. So in this particular situation, if he had tried to get onto the internet and done a ping to 8.8.8.8 versus a ping to Google, then that will let him know his issue here. So it sounds like his DNS or his DNS cache may have been incorrect. And so whenever he was trying to go to DNS servers, he couldn't find any that was actually in his area, or he couldn't reach the ones that he normally was trying to reach because he's no longer in the state that he was in previously, or country he was in previously, because he moved around. That's what I'm thinking here. I think that he may have had some static DNS IP addresses. But latency was a strong pick so it was latency all the way up until he said he tried Powerline. If he tried Powerline and he still has the issue, you can no longer say latency. Now you can say, okay, well maybe you have a bad Powerline adapter, but he has 3 different packs. So it's a pack of 3. So in other words, it's a pretty good possibility that he tried one and then the other and then swapped it out with another one and still had the issue. So because it's a pack of 3 and it's Powerline, which means that he's no longer going through the wall, which I was thinking that may actually be what's causing latency. Maybe he has a bad cable in the wall. That's not the case here. And it's not latency at any means because of the power line, and because he was still having issues after replacing the power line or swapping to power line. So yeah, with this one here, it just sounds like he may have had some static DNS entries, and because of that, it was going to those locations that were no longer available because he was no longer in that country. So that's what I'm thinking here. That's why his Windows repair was able to fix it, because it probably just ipconfig space / flush DNS. Probably just flush the DNS and then remove whatever static IP addresses it had on the DNS. That's what I'm thinking here. He would have also been able to prove it by doing a ping to 8.8.8 and then a ping to Google. That would have also had pointed him in the right direction. Alrighty. Sorry, I probably should have read that parentheses there. I thought it was still part of the question, but that kind of answered it here. That pretty much did it for us, because that essentially told us that his issue was more so DNS and his PC, his card. Now, the fact that it's slower means that his card may be having issues too, but or his latency may still be a thing. In other words, he may still be dropping packets. So latency may not be too far off. Because he never mentioned that he went back to the power line after he fixed his internet. So he doesn't know. So it could be that his wired connection also still has latency. And because of that, that's what makes him have a slower speed, but it's not enough to cause network connectivity issues. In other words, if you're at 68 milliseconds versus 40 milliseconds, it's not enough to cause issues, but it's enough to be noticeable. It's enough for your internet speed to be slower and degraded because you're dropping packets. It may be, 5% of packets, but it's TCP. So that means that the packets will just get resent, but you're dropping 5% of packets, which will slow down your internet speed. So it's not going to give you as much as it normally would have because you're dropping packets in the transmission of that particular network connectivity. So in this particular situation here, he may actually still have issues with latency as far as the 29.2, which is what the issue that we're talking about now. So what I would say in his particular situation right now, to see if he can get a higher speed than his Wi-Fi, is to basically take his computer and hook directly into his router downstairs and just bypass his line altogether and see if that resolves his issue. And his second issue, and his second issue being that his internet speed wired is slower than his internet speed Wi-Fi. You can also of course say try the power line and see if the power line is faster. Now, if the power line is faster than the wired connection, then obviously he has an issue with latency in the wired connection, and he may have just a bad cable, and he may have to go that way around it. So he can go two different ways around it. So if he doesn't have an Ethernet cable, or you know, he may have issues trying to get an Ethernet cable, I'm not sure, in the UK, then he can try the power line because he still has it. And if he doesn't want to try the power line, he can try Ethernet cable. Either way. So he has two ways to troubleshoot that issue, the second issue, in order to make sure that he gets his internet speed hardwired above his Wi-Fi. Woo! Boy, these issues here, boy, I'm starting to feel like a champ today, man. I'm on fire with these issues, man. We done gone all over the world. I'm answering them like a pro. There have been times where I've been on calls throughout history where if it's like a really hard issue and like the customer has dealt with like multiple people and this is dealt with multiple people, and then I get on the call, and then after doing a whole bunch of troubleshooting I managed to fix it, I may cuss. I may be like, hey, I'm a bad motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? And say that directly to the customer and be okay with it because they're happy that the issue got fixed too. There have been times where I've done that. I am that petty. I will gloat if I fix an issue. And that one was a fun one. And some of these other ones have been really, really fun, and we have been on point today. So man, I'm starting to get my technical support troubleshooting juices flowing between, you know, the PC issues, the networking issues, the hotspot issues, the Wi-Fi issues, the cell phone issues, the heating issues, the gaming issues. This is fun. I am rolling today. Okay, hotspot. Okay, let's make sure we finish on a good note. Okay, 8:56. So we have a little bit of time left. I kind of wanted to get some of these Mac ones in. Where's the Mac ones? Okay, let's do a couple Mac ones because I only have a little bit of time here. So I don't think I have enough time to get into those. Well, we may pick those up tomorrow or Wednesday. So this one here is from Logline, and this is Mac. So I apologize. We have a little bit of time. We may go a little bit over today, but let's do this. This is from Logline. I am stupid and sold my 11-inch iPad Pro a few months ago. Wasn't using it at the time, but I miss it now. I understand that. I've given away a lot of tablets, and then all of a sudden I need them for a particular situation, and now they're gone or broken because I gave it to somebody who didn't take care of it the way I took care of it. Now that the iPad Air M1 has been out for a while, is it worth saving the $200 and just getting one of those instead? I know it's the 60 hertz display, less speakers, etc., etc. I'm just talking about in practice. How are people liking the Air? I can't tell if it'll be that noticeable of a downgrade from the Pro, especially since the 11 didn't get the mini LED display. You're correct. So the 120 hertz display that's on the iPad Pro, you know, if you've never seen it before, then you don't really know what you're losing because you always had the 11-inch. You never had the bigger version where it actually did have that screen. Well, I think the Pro actually did have the 120 hertz on the smaller version and the larger version, but the display was better. It's something along those lines. But in this particular situation, it all depends on what you use it for. Me personally, the iPad Air M1, when it came out, it was actually really, really great. But the speakers on the iPad Pro, as soon as it told me that it lost those speakers, I was done. Because I've never experienced speakers the way I experienced speakers on the iPad Pro, the 13-inch. That guy's speakers are so good that you don't even need headsets. And for me, if you notice, like if you look at my channel, you would notice that I never make videos about headsets. I make videos about earbuds. There's a reason for this. Most headsets hurt my ears, so it's very difficult for me to give a review about a headset without being biased. So because of that, I never use them. So I like the iPad because it gives me speakers that are strong enough that I can hear perfectly fine. They are very, very crisp, and they are excellent. So if speakers is your main concern, then yeah, the Pro would probably be better. Outside of that, you may not even miss the 120 hertz display. Now, if you told me that you were playing Call of Duty and you like playing Call of Duty and stuff like that, then you may want to stick with the iPad and the iPad Pro in this particular situation. That way you can ensure that you have the 120 hertz display, because my notes in my head are a little foggy about which one had the 120 hertz and which one didn't. So I think only the Pro had the 120 hertz display, if I remember correctly. And if that's the case, then I may have to stick with that one. So the real question is, what do you do with your iPad? If you game on your iPad and you play something like a Call of Duty Mobile, or any of the shooters, then you're going to be better off with the iPad Pro. Outside of that, if you are an audiophile or you really like movies, you're going to be better off with the iPad Pro. Outside of that, though, the iPad Air is excellent. Outside of that, the iPad Air is excellent. So if those issues that I disclaimed earlier do not apply to you, then get the iPad Air. Alrighty, let's do one more. Upgrade. I was gonna do it until I just saw no. So basically, on this one here, it says, I'm still on iOS 13. Will I lose any data or anything by upgrading to the current operating system? But somebody else just wrote no. That's a true answer. No, you would not. But see, here's something I do want to explain that I ran into. In iOS 16, once I upgraded to the beta version, it did erase all of my recent calls. So it's a possibility that some of your information can be erased when it comes to like calling information. So, but that's only in the beta. It's not in the actual version, in the actual full release of iOS. I haven't run into that problem doing a full release of an iOS version. I've only had issues in the beta. So yeah, I apologize, guys. I'm gonna do more Mac issues and Mac questions in the coming days, or just whenever, because I do these all the time. So we'll get to more Mac issues later on. And yeah, so that way we can kind of have a nice mix between Wi-Fi, networking, PC, AMD, graphics, phone. I gotta find the subreddit for earbuds and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm pretty good with that as well. Seeing if I can make reviews on them. And iOS. I kind of want to dip my hands in all of them. That way we kind of have a nice mixture and get better all around with all of them. That way, if you want to do like Mac support, you can by watching some of these videos and how I troubleshoot Mac issues. I kind of want to have that as well, and then myself get better with Mac issues. So alrighty, forum, that's gonna do it for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and like button. If you really like it, forum, go ahead and subscribe. I love you either way. Take care, all the best, and bye.